here, and then there we go. And then let me see if I can change my settings so that I don't show up. I'm just going to see if I can hide self view. Okay, cool. So for either one of you, I guess, Ashley, if you want, let's start with you. You know, what did you think when you heard that there was this resolution in the lawsuit, and that Purdue Pharma is basically going to be held accountable for its role in the opioid crisis that obviously has hit Maine and states all over the country? What was your reaction to that?
I mean, I think it's a great thing because, for one, I think the money can be put to good use to help people. It's such a, I mean, we know that it's been an issue for a while, but it's only gotten worse. And we need to be able to help these people, and funding is a big problem. So hopefully this will, be able to allow us to help, more people and get them into recovery and get them away from all of the drugs and, the things that are hurting them
Yeah.
and everyone.
Right. I mean, it's $20 million is expected, over 9 years to come to the state. I mean, and as you and I have talked about, and basically everybody I talk to, the biggest issue is not having money or resources, either money to enroll in a recovery program or simply, something like a I'm not sure what the appropriate word is, but like a detox facility. There just really are not that many. I mean,
No.
what are your thoughts? And Rob, the same question to you. What are your thoughts on? I'll have Ashley go first, just so we don't stepping on each other's toes. But Ashley, your thoughts on knowing that Maine is going to get some money that will be directed to these types of efforts.
I think it's amazing. Just in the last year, we've lost two of the founders of Journey House. Two of the three, have passed away of overdoses, among many, many other people. It seems, every couple weeks I get news that someone else has, passed away, whether I, knew them personally or have met them, out in the community. So we need these resources, and we need the money to be able to help people, people like Rob and myself, and all of the people that we work with. We do our best, day in and day out, and sometimes we're not able to help everybody, but we do our best to help whoever we can. And I think that some other places, or if you don't have the money, or what I mean, things like that, or it's even just the cost of keeping the houses open. We've taken many people who haven't had money. They're coming off the streets or from jail, and we have lived through that, and we know what it's like to have nothing and to be scared of a new way of life, because we've lived a certain way for so long with these drugs and alcohol, and things like that. So to be able to have more places like, oh yeah, we have 5 detoxes now instead of 2, or whatever the case is, just to have more options to send these people to help them and get the resources that they need to get off of the streets and to get away from that way of living.
So Rob, those two same questions over to you. And so the first one, I'll just kind of recap. I noticed you were busy, so I started with Ashley. But the first one being, your reaction to the fact that Purdue Pharma is being held accountable for its role in the opioid crisis.
I think let's put that into context. So in 2007, Purdue Pharma was sentenced to pay $635 million in fines. But by that point, they've already taken in $35 billion in revenue. So $635 million over $35 billion is not very much money. And we've been here before, and by 2010, the Sackler family was paying themselves $335 million a year. And so let's be clear, this isn't justice. This isn't accountability. This is I don't know, it's a chip off the old block, and the Sackler family is deeply entrenched into the sort of powers that be. If you go down to our nation's capital at the Smithsonian Institute, you see the Sackler Gallery, right? So right there at the middle of the folks in charge of this country is the Sackler family. This doesn't budge that. Let's not pretend that it does. It's vitally important that we do get money into street level community programs that help people with substance use disorder. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One of the things that we need to recognize is that survivors of problematic drug use aren't just ill, they're injured. Part of what we need to do right now is develop street level community programs that can take care of injured people. And that level of injury is both physical and psychiatric and actually moral. There's a new movement around identifying moral injury. And so part of what we need to do is we need to make sure that not only are these funds being spent, just increasing the denominator, more programs of any kind, I think is good, but we do need to make sure that the programs that are being funded meet people where they're at with the kinds of care that they need. One of the big issues that we see right now is that the medical care that's available to stabilize neurologically injured people is being stigmatized, and there are housing programs in which folks are not allowed to receive that kind of medical care, which puts them both in pain because they have untreated injuries at that point. It makes them much more likely to have recurrence of problematic drug use, and it's fundamentally unfair and probably illegal. So all of the programs that Ashley and I are involved in not only allow, but support residents in receiving medical care. And there are not great standards. And in fact, the body that's empowered to regulate recovery houses is controlled by people whose own programs do not allow people to receive medical care. So let's be clear, this isn't holding the Sacklers accountable, and this isn't necessarily going to go into programs that are well run.
Rob, I appreciate that context. That's really important. You know, that,
and it's not what people want to hear. The story that people want to hear right now is sort of, you know, we're standing up and we're helping people. And I don't want to be the wet blanket, but I do think it's important to provide context.
Yeah, we shouldn't be sugarcoating it. I'm with you 100%. You know, another part of the resolution, I'm not sure how much you guys got to see of it, but you know, the part of it is they're going to be making all kinds of documents publicly available, even things that would be attorney-client privilege, so on and so forth. That's all being removed so that people can see the extent to which they were involved. You know, to your point, Rob, do you think that that level of transparency in a big company like this is going to perhaps change some of those, I guess kind of, I don't know if institutions is the right word, but you talked about them being involved with like the Smithsonian, right? Their name's on the museum in an area. So like, do you think that this is going to change the way the Sackler family is viewed if that hasn't changed already?
I mean, I think knowledge is the first step toward change, but I think we shouldn't confuse information with action. And money is a big component of action. But right now, we're seeing things like around Medicare reimbursement rates. A doctor is paid more if they send a person home with a script for a highly addictive opioid than if they don't. If they say, you know, we just did this thing and go take some ibuprofen, they make less than if they say, here's a script for Vicodin, Percocet, OxyContin. And there's a movement right now in DC called the No Pain Act that would change that. And so I think we need to, and most doctors are doing the right thing. I want to make that clear. I think word got out, most doctors are doing the right thing. I do think actually that somewhat counterintuitively, I think that if we understand that these drugs create chemical dependency, we need to be more careful about cutting people off of them. And a lot of the problem that Ashley and I see didn't come when the drugs were made available, they came when the drugs were cut off. And so because at that point, you know, I like to say people lost the script and kept the habit. And at that point, with the dark web, takes about 10 minutes to go on the internet. If you know where to go, you know how to go there, and you got the Bitcoin and you got the special browser, and you've got just about anything in the world coming to your mailbox. China's got these fentanyl labs. They're manufacturing this stuff in massive quantities. Their government knows that it's happening. This isn't conspiratorial, it's just true. And so the time in which interdiction was possible, and clearly it was never really possible, but it's certainly not possible now. And I think that it's tricky because whether they're legal drugs or illegal drugs, there's a lot of both. And so putting the actual stopper in it is going to be difficult. I do think, though, that it's important that we build a better medical system. And I think in the 1970s and 80s, pain was identified as the fifth vital sign, which meant somebody would come in to the doctor and they try to figure out how healthy that person is, how's their circulatory system, how's their respiratory system, and how much pain are they carrying. And the opioids became a quick and easy solution to that problem. Somebody comes in with high cholesterol, we put them on Lipitor. Somebody comes in pain, we put them on opioids. And clearly that created dependency. Clearly that created real problems. I do think, though, that we shouldn't completely negate the concept of pain as a serious thing that makes people unhealthy. I think that people need access to healthcare. And making the Sackler family pay a little bit more money is good. It gets money into these programs. But what we really need is to address the underlying disparities and inequalities in healthcare that drove people to seek opioids in the first place. And we see things like truly effective holistic palliative care that isn't just a little orange bottle, but is a procedure, is a surgical thing, is a more expensive thing, is an ongoing thing, and we need to, people, the way that everybody's born with a Social Security card, you should be born with a Medicare card. And if we could do that and we could get people access to actual healthcare, then that's the real alternative. It isn't pills or no pills, it's just pills versus actual healthcare.
I gotcha. Well, where do we go from here, guys? What do you think? Actually, I don't know if you had any thoughts based off of what Rob has said. Oh,
Yeah,
hi, Emerson. Hi, Emerson. How are you? I saw
Yeah.
her. I go, so
a lot bigger than the last time you saw her.
oh my gosh, the last time I saw her, she was a baby.
Yeah, she's 4 now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What do you think?
I mean, it's something Rob and I talk, a lot.
Hi.
Say hi, Chris and Rob.
Hi, Rob.
It's, Rob and I, like I said, we talk multiple times a week, but it's something, that we always talk about as far as like what he said about, the medical care. And, it's something that I feel like we just talk about all the time of how we can get people to see it differently, and I don't know if this is something that will help, because maybe there will be more money available for more housing, for more MAT housing. But we should not have the right to be able to refuse people housing because they want to take medication that's going to help them, with the brain injury that they have from using these hard drugs, and also something that's going to keep them from going back to those hard drugs. It's, it's not fair. Who am I to, to say, oh, you want to take, Suboxone or methadone, so you can't live in this house, just the same as we are MAT housing. But if somebody chooses not to be on Suboxone or methadone, we don't tell them that they can't live at our house because we're MAT housing. you know, like we are willing to give anybody, you know, a chance at recovery, you know, and that's how it should be. It shouldn't be us telling somebody who, you know, they can't live here because they want to be on a certain medication.
Yeah, and I think another piece of that is there sometimes folks want to talk about prevention and recovery. It's the prevention and recovery task force or whatever. And what I hear when I hear that is, we're happy to talk about people who don't do drugs yet. We're happy to talk about people who used to do drugs. But when are we going to talk about people who are doing drugs? And the missing term there is harm reduction. And whether it's OxyContin or this fentanyl coming in from China, the unfortunate truth of the matter is that there are a lot of people in our communities who are using drugs. They used drugs yesterday. No matter what we do today, they'll probably use drugs tomorrow. And so what we need to do is meet those people where they're at, both by making Suboxone, buprenorphine, methadone available. Not if people who are stable on these things, they are sober, they are functional, they are important parts of our community. And if we act like they aren't, we're hurting them. And the other, but we also need clean needles. We also need just massive amounts of Narcan out there. Rhode Island is making steps toward opening a safe consumption site in which people can use drugs under supervision. We need to do that here in Maine as well. And if we can meet people where they're at, they're sick, they're behaving in problematic ways, they don't have very much money. If we can meet people where they're at and just help them with where they're at, then we stand a much better chance of helping them get to where they want to be. And I think we need to disabuse ourselves of the notion that we are the ones who ought to determine what's right for other people. And do I want people using intravenous drugs? Of course not. But if they're going to, I'd like to see people stay alive. I'd like to see people not contract diseases. But Ashley and I, the work that we do right now, we're not working in the harm reduction space. We're working in the low barrier recovery space. And we need to meet people where they're at. You know, I've seen people get jobs only to lose them when they find out that people have criminal records. And we shouldn't have criminalized these people in the first place. The action that was made in the legislature this session around LD 967 that's going to end the criminalization of people using drugs. That's huge progress. And we need to love people. We need to love people. Not because love is easy, but because love is necessary for fair and effective public policy. And can money help with that? Yes, money can help with that. In part because love is an action, it's not a noun, and to actually give people what they need costs money. And I'm tired of I'm a cheerleader for recovery. Great. Where's the money, Lebowski? And if this is a step toward that, and also the other thing that I would say is that we can meet these problems at street level in cost-effective ways. Rich boys go to rehab, poor boys go to jail. The rehab complex is both not available to low-income people right now and is just incredibly expensive. We're talking about dropping $30,000 in a month. Ashley and I can house people for $7,000 a year. Incarcerating people costs $50,000, 7 times more than housing them in the community. And so the programs that would work need to be publicly available. They can't have these sort of massive barriers to entry. We need a whole continuum of care that meets people where they're at, whether they're in active use or they're trying to get sober, and actually building an effective continuum of care in which people are not left in the cold will help all of us. And I think it's important to remember, and I think this is changing, that this is about everyone in our communities, because all of our families are affected, because no one wants to live somewhere surrounded by neighbors who are hurting themselves. And so this isn't a niche issue. This isn't an issue that only affects bad families or bad people. This is an issue that affects all of us, and we're all in this together. And the difference, though, is that even though we're all in this together, some of us are showing up in a way that not everyone is.
So Rob, I'm kind of echoing your sentiments from what you just said about the continuum of care, right? It's a spectrum, right? There are multiple facets. So the question I'm about to ask you may be overly simplistic, and so please pardon me for that. But let's just play this hypothetical real quick. You're in charge of the 20 million over the next 9 years that the state's going to get to put towards prevention, treatment, and recovery. Would you be able to name 3 bullet points or 4 bullet points of this is what that money should go towards, generally speaking? It doesn't have to be, this thing in Augusta or that thing in Waterville. Just, are you able to say, hey, we need low barrier recovery housing, we need X number more detox centers, and we need, X number of safe consumption sites, or something like that? I don't know. I'm making it up. What would be your top 3, your wish list with that 20 million?
We need more harm reduction services. We need more long-term residential treatment. And I mean, I think the continuum of care is a great place to start by thinking about it. So we need services at each stage in the game. We need effective prevention. The term that we need to be using around there is preventative mental health care, which means the same way that when you turn 50, they stick their finger up your butthole, when you might not be great for television.
I may have to cut that part out, but I understand the point.
when you turn 11, they should see how you're doing. They should give you an adverse childhood experiences survey and assess your risk for developing a substance use disorder. And if you need help, we should give you help. Scare tactics and DARE don't work. Identifying high-risk young people and giving them the services that they need to go left instead of right, that works. If people do develop problems, we need to make sure that we have services who can meet people in active use. That means needle exchanges, that means Narcan, that means safe consumption sites, that means loving people who are difficult to love. As people come into recovery, we need detoxes and we need long-term residential programs, right? Because people don't turn on a dime, and we need to make sure they have safe, supportive environments for a month, 2 months. Right now, these things exist, but they're largely either very difficult to get into or only available to wealthy people. After that, we have to lift barriers to housing and employment and long-term healthcare. We have to disabuse ourselves of the notion that recovery programs are a short-term thing and recognize the need for them to be a long-term thing, so that it's easier for people, whatever they've been through, to move on with their life. As to how much money to put into which bucket between—
Oh yeah, no, you don't have to.
I don't know. I don't know. I have to work it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask you to
figure it out.
I wouldn't ask you to do that. I would just, generally speaking.
Yeah, I would say we need a continuum. We need a continuum of care. There is no single magic bullet solution. And so, and we need to level the playing field and open the doors. And one of the big things that this money has the potential to do is make it so that low-income people have access to the kinds of resources and care that upper-income people already do. One of my good friends says his family has spent $150,000 on his care so far. And that's great for his family. Most families in Maine, the vast majority of families in Maine, could never spend that kind of money.
Right.
But hopefully putting a lot more money on the table, developing low barrier solutions will open the floodgates, open the aperture to many people who are currently not able to access the kinds of care that are right now only available to those with money.
So Ashley, I mean, can you share, are you willing to share, kind of your experience in this and how recovery has helped you? I mean, look at you now compared to when I met you 4 years ago, compared to the last time, we were talking about where your recovery began. Is there something you can share about, for people who maybe don't know that, their neighbor is in recovery, and what it takes for them to kind of get their life to the point where yours is now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful. I almost lost, my life to drugs. My last day using, I, overdosed and was Narcan 3 times, and I went to Portland the next day. I just, you just have to stick with it. I think my biggest thing was like, I just thought, okay, I'm sober, so everything's just gonna be sunshine and rainbows, but it wasn't that. I had to earn trust back from my family, and I had to, pretty much start over, at the age of 29, and try to learn a whole new way of life. And it's not easy, but like I said, you just have to stick with it. You have to, when you have those bad days, you have to reach out, you have to talk to someone. And I mean, I'm 5.5 years sober now, and Rob will get a call from me every couple weeks, like, oh, this happened. And like, I don't know what to do, or, and it's just getting it out. Like for me, it's getting it out. When I start to keep those, those bad days or those, ill feelings in, is when it's not good for me. It's not good for me to bottle things up, because then it gets to a point where I don't want to deal with it anymore. And for me in the past, it was turning to drugs, and my last year using, it didn't matter if it was, good feelings, bad feelings, celebrating something, or I had a crappy day. I always used drugs to deal with anything. Like I said, happy times, bad times, sad, whatever it was. So it's not easy, but you just have to reach out. You have to put your, set your pride aside, and, do what you're told at the beginning. If they tell you to pray, or if they tell you to, read this in the big book, or, call your sponsor every day, whatever it is, you just got to do it, and you got to be willing to put the work in. We put so much work. Gosh, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I know, like for me, I remember when I first went to Portland and it was snowing out, and I'm like, we really have to walk to a meeting. And the owner of the house said, would you walk to your dealer's house right now to get what you wanted? And I was like, yep, I probably would have. So I guess I'm walking in the snow to a meeting. It's like, we went to, so many lengths to get the drugs and, stuff like that. So it's like, you just have to be willing to go to any lengths to stay sober and, get the recovery. And you gotta do it.
Ashley, Rob has made obviously some really strong points about kind of what the true impact of, the 4.3 billion that the company is facing. But, when you hear about it, does it give you any hope as somebody, who now works in this field, that there might be people out there who used to be like you, who might have a chance at now living the life that you have?
Yeah, it definitely gives me hope. And it's like, so, we talk about, we talk about the overdoses and sorry.
It's okay. I have a 16-month-old, so this is what it is.
We talk about the overdoses and the loved ones that we've lost, and the negative things. But I've seen. Okay, hold on, please. Sorry, but
No, it's okay. I'll let you go after this.
Seen so much good too. People such as myself, as Rob, the program directors that we have at, you know, the 5 Journey houses and the guys that work with Rob at Courage House, you know, so there is so much good also, you know what I mean, doing this type of work. It's so sad, but so rewarding at the same time. And it's, you know, it's tough because it's one of those jobs that, like, me and Rob talk about it all the time. You couldn't write a book about it because there's just always new circumstances or situations or, you know, whatever, new personalities, you know, every day is something new. It's not a regular job where you can go into work and you know what to expect. You know, it's far from that, but it's, you know, this is the type of work too that keeps me where I need to be. You know, it reminds me of those early days in recovery and, you know, the detoxing and the feeling so lost and, you know, not knowing what was next. So it's like to be able to help people get through the most crucial times, you know, in their lives it's an amazing thing, you know, and we all just work together to do the best that we can to make that happen, you know, to give people their family member back, you know, and just to be there for people. You know, people were there for me when are still there for me, you know, but more so when I was first getting sober, and to be able to do that for somebody else and let them know, you know, it's going to be okay and you're not crazy. You know, you're not a bad person. Like, you made, you know, bad choices. And, you know, sometimes people are like, you did drugs and you're a felon. And I'm like, yes, I am. And yes, I did, you know, and they're like, well, look at, you know, and I'm like, yeah, but you know, I worked hard to get to where I am today, you know, and I'm just living proof that it is possible. You know, you can do it. And it's hard. It's not always easy, but it gets easier and it's worth it, you know? So.
If I could
Yeah.
chime in, I've had my challenges, but I was never an intravenous drug user and I was never incarcerated. But I choose to work today with folks who are both of those things, and both in the beginning of their journey and as they develop. All 6 employees of Journey House Recovery right now are survivors of both incarceration and substance use disorder. And it's amazing to see folks come back from these things to become leaders. And I love that. I love casting my lot with survivors, as well as with people who are struggling and suffering. And I wish that more people would join the work, because as rough as some days are, the rewards of seeing people do better, get better, is amazing. And this is fulfilling, and there are all sorts of ways for people to get involved. I encourage people to find recovery coach trainings. I encourage people to seek out recovery community organizations and get involved and become part of the work. And I think, you know, the other thing that I would say, in addition to getting involved, is you know, that I like to say the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is that you get to be a normal person. You have to manage relationships and employment and housing and all of those things. It isn't that the end goal of recovery is that you're now a millionaire who can run a marathon and everything is great. No, you have to deal with the day-to-day challenges of real life. And as much as I think folks who haven't been personally affected by these issues can find fulfilling ways to participate in them, it's wonderful to see people whose lives have almost been flattened by these issues become part of everyday life. Join the PTA, join the Rotary Club, join the neighborhood association, show up to work, be there for your family, be a normal person and a good person. And I really believe in a sort of expanded notion of community that both has folks who haven't been been directly affected by these issues showing up for those who have, and that includes people who have survived these things becoming part of the fabric of our communities again.
Awesome. I really thank you both for taking the time, and unfortunately I'm at a point now where I have to kind of get running. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add about this? I mean, we got plenty more stories to do. This won't be the only time we talk. I can guarantee you that.
I think one thing that I would say, which I do think is important, is if there's $20 million more on the table, and it's going to get sliced and diced and divvied out, it is vitally important that people who have survived these things, who have firsthand experience with them, be included in making those decisions. And I like to say that every time I go over to Courage House, I'm surrounded by experts. And the men who live in that house, and the women and other folks who live in other programs who've survived these things, they're the experts, and they know these things inside and out. They know what's involved, and the only way that we will make these decisions correctly and effectively and fairly is if those folks are included at the table. If the only people at the table are those in elected office and those with access to money and power and political authority, we will make the wrong decisions. I'm 100% sure of that. And I don't totally know what those systems of participation look like, but I do think that how the money is allocated is almost as important as how the money is allocated. You're on mute, Chris.
You'd think I would have figured this out by now. But thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for making the time and talking about this because it's important. Let's stay in touch. Rob, Ashley, do you have my cell?
I don't think I do.
I'll Facebook message it to you. It's changed since my old cell when I worked here the first time. So I'll message it to you.
Always fun to see how 45 minutes gets boiled down into 2 minutes.
I'm gonna do the best I can.
Hopefully something I said is worth broadcasting to the masses.
Plenty. It'll just like you said. Oh yeah, tonight. I'm not sure the time slots yet, but it's going to be something at like either 4 and 4:30 or, oh, hold on, here we go. What is it? 4 and 5:30. 4 and 5:30. There you go. All right. And then what I'll probably try to do is I'll probably try to clip this whole thing and put the full up on the web article that I've already written, so that people can go listen to more. Because again, we had a 45-minute discussion. We have to boil it down to a minute and minute 30 seconds. That kind of stuff is hard to do. So anyway.
Yeah, and if you take anything from what I said, seeing this as an opportunity to think about how the money is allocated, not just how the money is allocated. I always like sort of turn to a phrase like that. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that that's a vitally important question.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I appreciate it. Thanks for your perspective. It's good to meet you, Rob. Ashley, really good to see you.
Yes, you too.
What's the name of your other little one?